Hey my little munchkins, it's Jeffrey and I am on my way to one of my favorite places in the city. I did a short the other day about it, but we are heading to Odell Park in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It's very huge. It has quite a trail network and you could probably spend hours and still not walk through the whole trail. Finding a place to park, and I think right here is going to be as good of a place as any. So I'll get myself together and we'll give you the tour. So Odell Park is on the south side of Fredericton, and it occupies the quite a bit of the bottom of the hill, and then stretches all the way up to the top of Smythe Street, so there's quite an incline if you do want to walk all the way up it. One thing that's cool about our park too is they have a disc golf course that goes all around the bottom part. So often you can see people playing. I've done the course quite a few times. It's lots of fun, but you have to of course watch out for people that don't realize that there's a disc golf course handy. And a spot for families to have picnics if they wish. There's benches all throughout, but that's really the only spot to really have picnics with picnic tables. I tell a lie. Down there is a few picnic tables and things. And over here we have a sign that's kind of seen better days, but it shows the trail, and I guess it's about 10 kilometers worth of trails that a person could go to. Extends all the way up to Hanwell Road at the top of the hill, down to Wagoner's Lane at the bottom of the hill. So that's pretty cool. So we'll head off in this direction. One awesome thing that they have every summer is Bard in the Park, and they usually take a Shakespeare play and they will reenact it in the park. And when I went, we saw, was it Macbeth? The one that's the to be or not to be, and you would break yourself off into groups. You would choose if you were the to be or the not to be. And then a bard playing a lute would take you throughout the park, and at various spots where there were clearings, they would enact a scene of the play, and then you'd move on to the next scene of the play, and so on. And so there were different perspectives, so depending on if you were in the to be group or the not to be group, you would see it from different vantage points. And it was actually pretty cool. So every year they do a different play. During the pandemic, though, it kind of took a little bit of hiatus. So I didn't notice if there was one this summer because I wasn't paying attention. But hopefully they'll do it again, because it is quite fantastic to be walking around Odell Park and having the various props and stuff set up, and have the musician lead you around from place to place. So we're going to start going uphill, and I want to show you a spot where there's this really awesome spring. So there's always choices. No matter where you go, there's going to be, do I take the right way or do I take the left way? This way's nice, goes more into the woods. Over here is where we're going to go because it's the shortest way to get to the springs that I was telling you about. And you can actually see the runoff from the springs. Going down to the bottom of the hill. With Odell being so large, it's great because it really dampens the sound of the traffic. So it really is kind of like you're in a natural oasis away from everything. And you may have heard me mention in another video that I posted, but there is the giant hogsweed. That's an invasive species that made it into New Brunswick, and you don't really want to touch it. The juices inside can give you chemical burns, and if you get any in your eyes, it can make you go blind. So somebody special would have to come and take care of that, where they can dress up in all the PE gear and all those things. Okay, do I want to go this way? Actually, I think I might go back this way. I love our wooded area. It's has quite a variety, from great big birch trees to fir trees, and walking under an alder tree perhaps. Sometimes you'll run into mountain bikers too, as the woodland trails are pretty good for that kind of thing. Not too technical. There are some spots that are, but for people that are beginning their mountain bike journey, it's really not too bad. If ever you get a chance to come to Fredericton, I'd love to show you around. Go for a walk or two. Might take a little bit longer because, well, I'm not as in good of a shape as I used to be. And we will take a shortcut through here. It's late summer, and what's really nice about days like today is that there's not a whole lot of mosquitoes out. A little bit of a breeze going on, so that's keeping the insects at bay. Whew. Okay, we need to go to the left. Okay, so this little spot right here is a pool of spring water, and I once had a spiritually minded person talk to me about it, and says that on the land that Odell Park was made was significant to the native peoples, and that this spring was actually a magical spring and full of rejuvenating powers. And I know that you can see websites where there's springs all over the world that people go to because there's the thoughts that they're rejuvenating or have some sort of spiritual significance in them, and this is one that happens to be in Fredericton. The water is so cold because it is a spring that's coming right up through the ground, and I have tasted it before, and it tastes very, very, very clean, very fresh. Where it is coming right up from the ground, there's really nothing around to spoil it. And the water, of course, goes under the bridge and then down there to the bottom where I was showing you earlier. And so let's keep on going this way. It's a photographer's dream in Odell too. So many places for great pictures. On really bright sunny days, of course, you run into the issues of the light coming through the trees and then casting shadows on faces, and so you have to be sort of creative on how you take care of that. But a great big outcropping of rocks. And the nice thing I like about Fredericton is that you may have other cities. I was going to say you may have other cities where people would spray paint things on big rock faces like that. But then I just noticed that Nate was here, whoever Nate was. But at least it's in black and green, so kind of camouflage. But I love it with the rich green moss that's on it and the lichen that grows. It's just something about big stones, so grounding. Love the patterns too, like the rocks were just sandwiched one right on top of another, or like folded due to like tectonic stresses or what have you. So if we were to go that way takes us all the way over to Smythe Street, which we don't want to go that way, but then you could like head up and around the top, but we're going to go back past the spring again, and we'll take you down the other side, so we won't go up any higher than this, but like I said, you could, you know, walk for hours and hours and not have all the trails hit, because there's trails everywhere. And this park is an all-season park. A lot of people on the lower part or the upper parts will go cross-country skiing in the summer. There's a few spots that some adventurous people will go sliding. This is one of those spots because it goes up there and then goes all the way down there, so as long as you don't mind risking not being able to turn at the bottom and hitting a tree, then it could be quite an exhilarating little trip down the hill. I must admit that I haven't actually gone through here in the winter myself. And some lovely ferns. One thing that also, speaking of plants, that grows in Odell Park is chaga. And chaga only grows on birch trees. It's elusive, so there's not a lot of it growing, but every now and again you can see it. It's a black fungus, and when you crack into it off the tree, it has a really goldeny brown color. And it's as reishi mushrooms are the queen of the mushroom kingdom, chaga's the king of the mushroom kingdom. And there's been studies done in the university in some place in Siberia or whatever. They were studying it for possible uses in cancer treatment because of its adaptogenic properties and the way that it supports the body. There's thoughts that it could help. Now, of course, as a disclaimer, you don't want to be just going solo. You want to have the advice of a proper naturopathic doctor or your regular physician before deciding that that's going to be the treatment for you, if indeed you do have cancer, because cancer is a multi-approach. So just going it alone is not always the best, but also just so you know that the chemical big pharma way of treating cancer is not the only way. You could support that along with things like Reiki, for example, or with a naturopathic doctor. So things can work in concert. But yeah, anyways, that's my little aside. I just didn't want to talk about the joys of chaga without putting in that disclaimer that you always want to chat with your doctor about such things. So, like I said, there's a whole lot of trails in through Odell Park. We're coming up to one of the main ones, and the main ones are usually done up in like crushed rock and stuff, and are more geared towards your leisurely walks, especially if it's a family with kids that have strollers, or just people in general that would rather not walk all over roots and things. Hi there. Alright, so if we went left, we'd head up the hill, and that also goes through our botanical gardens. And they are working on making a great big huge rose garden, like a massive one, that looks to be about the size of a football field. But the last time I checked, it had kind of stalled, because those kind of things are really expensive. And the city of Fredericton does take care of this a lot, but that was a massive project, so I don't know that it's finished yet. Someday we will park at the top of the hill and walk down, and then I can show you the botanical garden and then things from that vantage point. Further trails off this way that would take you to Hanwell Road, and we're going to head this way to the bottom of the hill, and then across and back to the car. I really love going for walks and things. Need to do much more of it than I do, especially since this is so close to have Odell right here. I'd love to travel the world and hike the different woods and things. There's actually a woods in Germany that's supposedly haunted, and there's also a castle nearby. So I would love one day to go to Germany and to check out the haunted forest and things. Maybe not by myself. I'd love to go with somebody. Have a couple friends from Australia that I'd love to do some more travel with, so maybe I can convince them to go to Germany. And then we could explore the really old buildings and castles and haunted forests and the like. And like I say, so many choices. We could even go down that pathway over there with those people walking, but we're going to keep on going down the hill. It would be hard to get lost, because if you travel enough to the left, you get to one street, and if you travel enough to the right, you get to another street, and if you travel enough downward, eventually you're going to end up on Wagoner's Lane, and it doesn't take you very long to get back to the parking lot there. So a person could explore to their heart's content, just as long as you don't have a specific time frame for it, because like I said, you could spend hours and get walking and not even explore half of what's in Odell Park. We actually, for a long time, we haven't had this, but years and years ago, when I first went to Fredericton, there was a spot that was enclosed, and they actually kept deer. There was a family of about 6 or 7 deer, and they would be, of course, fed and well looked after and cared for and things. But that area got defenced, and the animals relocated back to the middle of somewheres. So in Odell Park, you're going to find your normal animals like your squirrels and raccoons. There's a family of owls that live here, all kinds of other birds. You could see the occasional deer, but they would be walking in from, like, Fredericton's surrounded by wooded areas, so they would be just walking in and visiting and hopefully not getting hurt and going back. mountain biker. Oh. And we get a lot of that this time of year too, the cicadas making that really high-pitched noise. So yeah, so here's where we would have kind of started out. We did the loop, so we went up that way to begin with, and then coming back, of course, this way. So this spot over here was where there used to be a fenced-in area. Don't ask me how big, but it was huge, and the deer would be in there, and the fence would come right out to here, so the deer would have access to the water going by all the time, and we'd have the cover of the trees and the wooded area that's all in there. And the workers of Odell, there was like a feeding trough kind of area where they would bring all kinds of food out for the deer to eat. So they were really well taken care of, but they thought it was best to have them in their more natural habitat. Could have been either that, or maybe they just found that it was becoming very costly and time consuming to take care of them properly, and would have decided, for the sake of the animals, to release them. So all this water here would have come from that spring that I showed you up at the top. The neat thing about springs too is if you look at the source of the water, it's not really that plentiful by the looks of things. But the further away from a spring, the more water actually amasses. And you'll notice that in most springs throughout the world, that a small little spring could, generate into a large body of water. And somebody on like one of these nature programs was mentioning that, and they didn't really go into a whole lot of detail. But what I think is going on is because the spring water is so cold that it's causing the air above it to condense into more water because of the difference in the temperatures and stuff. And in our area, it's not very dry, it's humid a lot, so you will see that where the spring starts off small and then the further it goes along, the more water it seems to have. I have not verified that with a real scientist, but it just makes sense to me. And so still in there would have been all the deer's area. Another thing I like too is, even though the main trail is right there with the chiprock and so on, there's all kinds of like little trails that go off of it or beside it or so on. So there's always a variety for whatever pathway you'd like to take. And so this main trail here, at the end of it is Smythe Street, and that's one of the busy streets, and there's a lot of houses up and down, so it's really cool if you live on Smythe Street or one of the little subdivisions along it, to have Odell right in your backyard that you could go walking whenever you wish. And we are pretty much at the bottom. This is the duck pond. I say duck pond. There isn't any ducks in it right now, but they used to have quite a number of them that would call this their home, as well as the pond had probably close to 500 goldfish in it. People would release them in there, and I don't think that they're there now, sadly. Well, it's not really sadly, but unfortunately they met their demise because they are a danger. If they were to escape this pond and get into the stream system and down into the river, they would really do a bad number for the local species that live, because of how voracious their appetite is for plants and stuff, and they are not natural to our waterways. So they probably put something in the water to kill them, just to prevent any ecological issues with them escaping. And they even had signs up a while ago saying, please do not release your goldfish or any aquatic species into the pond system. There's an overflow off to the left, and that's how they'd get out, is that if they rained a lot and the water levels got up, the overflow leads to a system that eventually would take them down to the river. And there's lots of spaces like this too. In the middle of summer, of course, it'll be a lot more pretty because there'll be so many flowers. It's still nice in the late summer, fall. You have a variety of bush over there. Hydrangea was what I was trying to think of. And then more on the other side. And then there's various types of cypress and a blue spruce, and that would have been peonies right there at one point in time, and some tiger lilies up there, and that giant hogsweed, although it looks kind of nice sitting right there, but hopefully it doesn't decide to multiply and take over down here. And I love this huge willow tree. Willow trees are one of my favorite. My all-time favorite tree is the elm tree. And Fredericton used to be called the city of stately elms because we had so many. There was a problem with the elm disease, where some of them died, and then we had some downtown, and then the city decided, hey, let's pull them up and put in a skate park. So I wasn't too happy about that, because how can you be the city of stately elms without any stately elms? Got another view of the pond and the bridge over on the other side, and another great big huge willow tree over there. It'd be really good to get inspiration to paint this scene, because willow trees are very awesome to paint, and it's just so beautiful. A lot of hostas over there. And around to some more picnic tables, and there's a small playground for children with swings and the like. It's not super huge because they really want to spend their money on the upkeep of the natural beauty. And this is that sign that I was telling you about, don't let it loose. It says, releasing non-native plants and animals into the wild can harm our lakes and rivers. Non-native species can prey on our native species, introduce new diseases, increase competition for resources, and alter important habitats such as fish breeding grass. And it says, never release aquarium animals or plants into the wild, only release sport fish back into the same body of water they were caught in, never move or introduce fish to new water bodies, and take actions to prevent accidental escapes from ponds. And then they have on the bottom about the goldfish, saying that these goldfish are not supposed to be here. Goldfish are great to have as pets, but they can cause big problems when released into local water bodies like this one. In the wild, goldfish are known for eating large amounts of plants, insects, small aquatic animals like frogs and other fish, and native fish eggs. Increasing water cloudiness by stirring up the bottom of rivers and lakes, which negatively affects aquatic plants but also animals, and reproduce and spread faster than native species. A female goldfish can lay up to 1,000 eggs at a time. and they can spread disease and parasites to native fish. And then it says, if you have a goldfish, keep them safe in your aquarium. If you do need to rehome your pet, please ask friends, family members to adopt them. Reach out to your local aquarium community on social media, or contact the business where you purchased your goldfish to see if they can be returned. From the government of New Brunswick. So that is a great idea. I've had a number of aquariums in my time, and it is great to have such fascinating animals in them, but you definitely want to keep them inside the glass and not outside in the nature. And we got our berries. Those are probably chokecherries. Not 100% sure, but they look like chokecherries. And you can eat them, but not the seeds, because the seeds have cyanide. And so people make chokecherry jelly and things, or you can, suck the juice out of one. And look what we have here. It is a little chipmunk. Let's see if we can get a little closer. Or it might be a little baby squirrel, one of the two. Our squirrels are usually really large. Here we are, little fella. What are you eating? Oh, you don't need to go away. Oh, and there he goes. And I don't know if you can hear it, but off in the distance was some bagpipes. There's a house sort of off that way that has a person who's part of the St. Andrew's Pipe Band, and he practices a lot, and it's so awesome. We'll head that way again just to see, because it sounds like he's actually in the park itself, not at his house. Awesome. Well, that's about it for today. I want to thank you very much for coming out to see my video going through Odell Park. Do stay tuned for some more adventures throughout this wonderful city of mine in Fredericton, New Brunswick. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't like the video, well, don't give it a like, but do subscribe and help support the channel. I'm just starting out fairly new. And I just wanted to let you know too that you are amazing. There's only one of you on this planet, and that makes you more rare and special than diamonds. And I love that about you. So take care of yourself, and we will see you next time. Bye.